Hello and welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel, brought to you in partnership with Hertfordshire Mind. On today's tactical preview, as we look ahead to our trip to Turf Moor, Burnley versus Watford, myself, Jacob Culshaw, joined by Charlie Zazzera, as usual, and a very special guest getting the Burnley perspective on things so far this season. YouTuber and big Burnley fan, Jacob Horsfall. Jacob, how are you, my man? It's nice to have another Jacob on the show, actually.
Yeah, it is. I don't see many people called Jacob. Yeah, but yeah, I'm good. I'm
Mate, a pleasure to have you on. It's normally two Charlies or Charlie Squared or whatever, but lovely to have you on, mate. Charlie, how are you, my friend? One of the Charlies, CZ. It's
good.
How's
after a bit of a break from Watford, I'm looking forward to a big festive fixture. Going to Burnley on Saturday, getting the cricket club nice and early. Maybe I'll see Jacob in an alley on the way. And then,
are you coming down to the game?
Yeah, well, I live in Manchester, so I'm coming across.
Oh, get yourself to Royal Dyche.
What's the go-to for an away day, Jacob? Is it the cricket club mainly?
I think the cricket club is the one where you won't get a glass thrown at you. Yeah, probably. Probably the best.
And if you do, it'll be plastic, so you'll be all right.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah,
very true. We're going to get all into it today. Watford's trip, as I say, to Turf Moor. A Burnley team that are doing really well if you look at the table so far, and a Burnley team that are second in the form table for the last 8 games, unbeaten in those 8, winning 5, unbeaten at home in 10 games as well, and the best defence in the league, conceding just 8 goals. But Jacob, you said to me before we went live that doesn't tell the whole story of this Burnley team under Scott Parker. So just give us a bit of a perspective on your season so far, what you've made of it, and just a bit of insight onto your overall assessment of Burnley so far.
I think it was a weird one because the season started so well. Obviously, we went to Luton, dismantled Luton, who were kind of coming down. It was a lot of people were saying, Luton would be the team to go straight back up, and we're built for the Championship. And we made light work of them. Then we battered Cardiff as well, having so many different players that just looked a class above. Because obviously, when we went up, we spent a lot of money, and we spent a lot of money on players that were young and needed to improve. But then we saw things like Wilson Adderberg going to Tottenham for 40 odd million, Zeki Amdouni going to Benfica. Our squad was really picked apart. And then you saw straight away with the results. I mean, we went to Sunderland, got beat 1-0 with a team that was half the players now, to be fair, that played in that game aren't even on the bench. You had some Hoon Tonji playing on the left wing, who was a striker that was brought in the summer, and he's not really featured since, other than Millwall away. So yeah, it was kind of an awkward one to start with because it looked like we were going to glide through the league again like we did last time we were here. And then once we saw them people apart, we went through a pretty tough span. It felt such an awkward time because we had the derby, we had Sunderland away, some really tough fixtures that we had to get through. And to be fair to Scott Parker, I think he did a really good job at kind of making sure the team stuck together. There was a lot of stuff like Maximus Esteve had allegedly gone to the Olympics and then came back because he wanted to be with the squad and things like that, because everything was so up in the air with the future and stuff like that. So I think he's done a really good job at keeping things together. And then, like you said, we've put on a decent run of form. It's pretty boring to watch a lot of the time. But to be fair to Parker, he does have that reputation of, as boring as it can be, he does take sides up. So it's kind of one of them where you do want to watch good football, don't you? For me, if we were playing really good football, scoring goals at the time, and we were sat in 5th, I'd enjoy it a hell of a lot more than if we were winning 1-0 every week and being really, really bland. But at the same time, for the club on that, you do want to be going up. So I think, like you said there, you can't discredit him for the defence he's put out and the way he's kind of got a tune out of a team that were ripped apart in the summer, really.
And I guess, is there a case at the minute with Burnley fans that you're comparing that season under Vincent Kompany? Because I looked at where you're at this time under him in that 22-23 season, and you're on exactly the same points, but the way you've done it is probably completely different to the way you're doing it under Scott Parker.
Because I think the issue was with the whole comparison. It's a lot of the time when people are calling out Parker and saying things aren't good, a lot of people go, well, we've got same points or we have more points and all that stuff. But I think the difference was when we had Kompany, and obviously that season was an anomaly. There's not many times you break 100 points. And really, if we didn't rotate, we probably would have smashed the points record. But Kompany obviously changed the things around to get everyone a medal and stuff. But I think that the thing was that I've got with that is we didn't start great. Obviously, you beat us at your place, and then there was a steady improvement. You saw us every week, we were getting better. We got battered by Sheffield United, And that was worrying because it was just before we played Blackburn, actually. But then I think when we hit that period, when the World Cup came, you just saw that massive progression of the club and the way that we were playing and the individuals and stuff. But then I think now with Parker, it's kind of like there's not really any improvement. It's kind of like we were really good, squad got ripped apart, we were really bad, we've became to a decent, a good side, and we're just staying at this kind of level of this is what we're going to be. Unless we make some big signings in January, I think. Whereas like with Company, you had that. I think it's always better as a football fan if you're seeing that progression, even if you are losing, but you're seeing that kind of development. It's always easier to watch than if you just kind of get into an okay level and just stay in there.
Before we get Jacob's thoughts on Watford, Charlie, what's your assessment been of Burnley so far under Scott Parker, a coach that obviously you know a lot about during his time at Fulham, at Bournemouth as well. I wouldn't say he's I mean, it's quite the contrast. It's weird. I don't know, Jacob, for a lot of Watford fans, but I think initially when you think of Burnley, you think of Sean Dyche. I just feel like Scott Parker's completely different to Sean Dyche in the way. Maybe it's the tracksuit or it's the suit or the way he carries. He loves a knitwear, doesn't he, Scott Parker as well? But what have you made? What have you made of Burnley this season, Charlie?
Firstly, Scott Parker's Barnet, absolutely tremendous. When he rocked up at Kenilworth Road and that, they haven't seen a hairpiece like that. Yeah, like, I think Scott Parker's it's a strange one really because he's always had parachute teams, so it's kind of hard to judge. I mean, he went to Genk, didn't he? And I think he struggled, and whenever he's been in the Premier League, but yeah, I think it's hard to judge him because he can obviously set up a team. He knows how to. I can't really remember Bournemouth and Fulham being that great defensively, but I think he's always had the best players in the league. But yeah, this season, looking at Burnley from afar, just really weird where you would see they've got the best defence in Europe. I think they've conceded only 3 goals at home all season. And then you see they're near the bottom for the XG charts. And what Jacob's saying there about the vibes, especially when you've got players like Culshaw, Foster, you expect them, even Benson. I know he might not have been in the team as much. Well, he might be, but yeah, you'd expect a bit more from them. So it's a strange one, really. But yeah, I've got some good memories going to Burnley. I'll never forget that. We beat him in the Premier League 3-1. I think Andre Gray, Will Hughes, and Deeney scored. That was a standout memory. Jacob, any good memories from you, Watford, Burnley?
I mean, I've got to say, when like Michael Jackson took over and Burnley were like, we're dead and buried, it was time to go. And we went to Watford. I think it was Josh Brown who scored around the length of the pitch to celebrate with the fans. I think like it's weird though, because like you say that, but I also, for some reason, I also have, off the top of my head, I feel like there's a lot of good memories for Burnley against Watford as well. Like, I think it kind of goes both ways. Like, it's quite I don't know, it's a weird one. Burnley versus Watford sounds really boring, but it actually can be quite exciting at times, I think.
Do you know that win that Charlie mentioned at Turf Moor? That's the last time we've actually gone to Burnley away and won back in 2018 under Javi Gracia, which feels like a distant memory. Jacob, what's your thoughts been on Watford so far this season? What you've seen under Tom Cleverley? I think my view of this game would be different if it was at Vicarage Road because of our run at home. It's 16 games now unbeaten under Tom Cleverley. We're unbeaten at home so far this season. We're sitting 7th in the Championship table. Just from an outside perspective, what have you made of us so far?
I think like it's a weird one. The Championship this season's it's bizarre, isn't it? Like when I look at the squads, and this is all due respect to Watford and stuff. When I look at the squads of the teams that are around, like probably outside the top 4, I just don't think the squads typically in a Championship season probably would be around like the positions that they're in. Like you said, Watford have put in a really good run of form at home, and whenever I've watched Watford, I think it's been all right. I think it's like a weird one. It feels like there's so many different inconsistencies when I watch you. Sometimes I think, wow, there's some players here that could really turn a lot of profit in for Watford and things like that. And then other times I watch, I say it just feels like there's been a squad thrown together. It's weird, but I feel like that is just the Championship, innit? But I think Clevy's done a decent job. Is it his first managerial job? It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think I read something the other day, like there's some stat like no one's done as good as him at home in their first set as a manager.
Great stat, that. It was a great stat.
Do you know who provided that stat as well? Charlie Zazzera plugged himself.
I think I saw that on I think I saw that on Twitter somewhere. But yeah, I think it's not really not a bad start. And like I said, you've got some really talented players. I think Chak Vitadze, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he looks like a special player. Like, I think I watched him. I was looking at the stats, and a Watford fan put it out. It's like 9 progressive passes and all that sort of stuff in your last game is like mental output. I think that's kind of somewhere where you get the joy from that against us, to be fair. But
sure.
Yeah, I think decent season for you, to be fair. And like I said, if you can build on that, and as long as there's always that progression, which I think there probably has kind of been with Watford, that steady steady progression with Cleverley. And like I said, when I'm talking about Burnley, that's all you want, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think most Watford fans would say he's the man to look out for, Georgie Chatford. That's as to be fair, I spoke to a couple of West Brom fans last week, and they said he was the best player on the pitch by a mile. Charlie, where do you find yourself as a Watford fan going into the game at the weekend? If we look at our Christmas period that's coming up, Burnley away, then Portsmouth at home on Boxing Day, Cardiff City at home on the 29th. We'll be doing a post-match pint at the Mad Squirrels. You can check us out there as well. And then going into the new year, it's QPR away, followed by Sheffield United at home. So 5 games in quick succession for Watford. Where do you find yourself at this moment in time under Tom Cleverley with this Watford team?
That fixture list was like a sandwich with tough bread. Burnley at the start, and then for the filler, Portsmouth, Cardiff, QPR.
What filling?
What filling? We should be able to get it down. Should be chewable, but you never know.
Branston pickle and cheese, I reckon.
Yeah, and then Sheffield United after that. I think Burnley's going to be really, really tough, and we're going to talk about it in a bit more detail. But can we just carry on that home run? If we can keep that home run going, I think we're going to have a chance. What Jacob was talking about, the Championship being bizarre this season, I totally agree. I was looking at the table the other day and I saw bloody Sheffield Wednesday were like a couple of places below us. And I was like, we beat them 6-2 away, and I thought they were near the relegation zone. So it's just mental. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the festive period. Can we keep winning at home? And if we can nick any away results, obviously I want to win every game, but you know me, Jacob, Culshaw, a win at Loftus Road to start the year would be delicious.
The Zazzera El Clasico is what they call that. I would say with Watford at this moment in time, it's a case of, as you say, keeping that home run going, as you say, Charlie, but also there's that, I say famous saying, but it feels like it comes up every season where win your home games and draw your away games. And I think I'm having a very similar mindset going into this weekend against Burnley, because as you guys mentioned, the defensive record's really, really strong. Even though Burnley are actually better away from home, they're actually top of the away form table this season, 11 games, 21 points. At home, I think they're 7th in that list. It's a very, very difficult place to go this season. I mean, in terms of what to expect tactically, Jacob, from this Burnley team for Watford fans, what would you say are the key principles? I know you said it's not the best on the eye, it's not the prettiest of football, not the sexiest under Scott Parker, but what can we expect going into the game? How are you going to set up the formation, team news wise? Yeah, give us the insight on those sort of things.
It's weird with Parker because I'll be honest, he makes some decisions where I'm just like, no idea why he's made them decisions. There'll be times where obviously we've got Humphreys, Bashir Humphreys, not Luke Humphreys. Bashir Humphreys playing left back at times.
Is that from you?
I've been watching too much darts. But yeah, Bashir Humphreys, who has been kind of feeling as a left back at times. But then we've also got Luca Pires, who a lot of people are a lot more fans of. He's a lot better going forward. So it's weird though, because sometimes I think when you look at it, you probably expect, the centre-back, who in reality is Humphreys, he's a centre-back. Playing left-back means that we're going to go up against the better side, your Leeds, and play a bit more secure that way. And then Pires against the lower sides, who we think we can dominate. But part of this seems to just go free for it. It just randomly rotates the two of them. So for me, like against you, I would like to say play Luca Pires. He's a bit more creative. He allows us to go forward and kind of play out in that way. But it'll probably be a 4-2-3, 4-2-3-1, like it has been for the most of this season, really. And the midfield's kind of a big question mark for me. Like, I don't know what he's doing there, because we had that spell where we looked really good. It looked like, when I go back to that progression, we looked like we were progressing as a side and looking a lot better, and not just winning games, but really controlling sides. And albeit it was Bristol City away and Cardiff, I think it was. Not Cardiff, sorry, Bristol City away, and I can't remember who the other game was. But then Josh Brownhill came back from injury and it kind of disrupted that. But yeah, probably be a 4-2-3-1, like I said, and the emphasis will probably be on just keeping the ball. We've got the 4th highest possession in the league. We're 2 centre-halves who are biggest ball progressors into the final third. A lot of it is we stay high. We're safe with what we do a lot of the time. A lot of crosses into the box can come in at times, and just try to get the wingers 1v1. I know Charlie talked about Culshaw, who's been really poor this season, to be honest. Culshaw's been really, really poor, which is another thing that a lot of fans have question marks about with Parker. Obviously, we saw Culshaw last season before his ACL injury, and he was electric. Like, I don't think I saw a fullback that could handle him last season in the Premier League, but this season, he doesn't look anywhere near it, and that's kind of a question about his part. Are using him properly? Used him on the wrong side. He played him on the right wing. He's a left winger for a lot of the games. But yeah, a lot of it is about getting 1v1s and trying to overload them wide areas. Getting Connor Roberts bombing forward. He's done a lot of that this season, and like he did under Company when we were down, coming into midfield and supporting the build up through that way. When we come out, a lot of the time we'll come out in like a 3-2 or 3-1, just kind of dependent on, again, the team that we're playing. And I'll give that to Parker. He can be very adaptable in that. And I think that he will want to overload the midfield to kind of protect himself against Watford. So we could see like Hannibal being included in that. He just loves to fight anyone, so to get him in there and just trying to cause chaos. Honestly, I've honestly not watched a game where Hannibal hasn't tried to punch someone. I think he gets more annoyed if he can't fight someone than like if he missed the chance. Like when we played, I think it was Portsmouth. The fans were singing it like, "You don't know what you're doing at ref," and Hannibal went over to the fans and started cupping his go like that. He's trying to fight the ref as well.
But yeah, Hannibal versus Porto on Saturday. That's what I'd like to see.
That's the battle, isn't it? That one.
He honestly, Hannibal, I'm surprised he's not been sent off this season. Really surprised. But yeah, I think Hannibal could be included to kind of just try and disrupt that midfield. Because I think for me, that's probably like when I was looking at the Watford squad beforehand. I think that's where you could probably get a bit of joy is coming through the middle.
We'll get the tactics board just up in a minute to predict the two starting lineups. From Watford's side of things, just team news. Obviously, we saw a change in system, didn't we, Charlie, to the 4-3-3 against West Brom, which worked the treat and cleverly said he made the decision to change the system on the Thursday with the game on the Sunday. So it was something that obviously had been suggested. He went with it. It worked. Whether we'll see that same system away at Burnley, we'll have to wait and see. Team news-wise, Ogbonna's back in contention to play. Tom Dele-Bashiru, as Charlie would say, is back on the grass. After a little bit of a spell out due to an injury. Kevin Caben is still struggling with a knee issue. We're yet to see him in a Watford shirt. He's featured in under 23s, but nothing as of yet. And Loser is still expected to be available. Charlie, before we get that tactics board up, would you continue with that 4-3-3 system that we saw against West Brom, where Rocco Vata on the left-hand side with 2 assists, who was man of the match, Quadro Bar on the other side, and then you had Chatfadazzi roaming in an 8, where he had the license and maybe even drifted to a 10 at times. Would you continue with that system, or would you go back to the 3 that we've seen so far?
Before I answer that, I've just seen some breaking news from our friend Sam Yuko, and one Mileta Rivic is back at London Colney in the training ground. So I don't know if he's been sent back from Bromby or if I don't think he's available, but there you go.
There you go.
Rayo Abeyo back. So now that was just something that popped up. But Jacob, it's more, I'm throwing it over to you, Culshaw. Like, you were there at the West Brom game. I was like, we need a statement win. I was surprised we went to a back 4, but Rocco Vata, other Jacob, you need to keep an eye out for this lad. He is absolutely electric. Some guy we got from Celtic, and he's so fun to watch. He played 2 assists. So, Culshaw, what do you think? Would you stick with 4 at the back? Because I think that's a big question. My theory is with 4 at the back, seeing Siralta, Porteous, Pollock getting dragged out to the wide areas when we haven't got that strength. But I think something that's been countering that is the introduction of Jeremy Ngakia, who is a fullback, who is a lot more defensive-minded. So before I sort of say what I think we'd go for, what do you think based on that win against West Brom?
I'm really torn. I'm really torn on this because I was so impressed with how we attacked in the 4-3-3, but also I'd be naive to say that we didn't look vulnerable going the other way, particularly with Tom Fellows going at James Morris, which Corbrand had clearly targeted. Fellows, I've seen a couple of times live this season, and Morris will admit he struggled in the first half, particularly to get control of Fellows. I think going forwards, I'm a massive fan of it. I thought, but it was Barr's best performance from the start. Rocco Vata playing from the start was excellent. 2 assists to his name. I preferred Chatfadazzi in the middle, where he picks up the ball in more dangerous areas rather than drifting out to the left-hand side, where he still looked great. But often Georgie, as we know, likes to drift inside. So I think almost playing him from the centre for the middle looks great. Imran Loser as a 6 was nice. Sissoko, I prefer him a little bit further forward. So in answer to your question, I actually think for this squad, it really suits the midfielders and the attacking players The other way, though, when you look at the back four, whilst Ngakia played well at the right back, it really does mean, I think, that you need to have more defensive fullbacks. Your likes of your Ngakia, Larousse is probably not going to start because he's better going forwards than he is going the other way. Morris is really the most defensive fullback that we have, unless you play Ken Sema there potentially. But even then, we're lacking a little bit of pace when we play the more defensive fullbacks, I think. And then Matty Pollock and Ryan Porteous, I thought Porteous was excellent against West Brom, probably up there for top 3 performances I've seen from him in a Watford shirt in the last couple of years. Really, really good. But those two guys, as they will admit, aren't the quickest of centre-backs. So in answer to your question, the top half of the pitch, I think it works brilliantly for the system. The other half, I'm still yet to be convinced. And that's why I actually think, Charlie, we'll go back to a back 3 at Burnley and just keep it tight and see ourselves into the game, as we did at Hull, where it was very, very Valerie and Ishmael, where we kind of relied on the bench to change the game. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleverley did that again, actually, and went with the back 3, keep it tight, keep it compact, and then just try and use the substitutions at about 60 to try and nick a goal and maybe get one on the counter-attack. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Let's let our guests go first with the predicted lineup, and maybe we can see what attacking threats they've got and kind of make a decision how we'd go. So, Jacob, do you want to slowly go through?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, obviously, Super James Trafford in goal. Absolutely, honestly, Trafford this season. I think that's when we talked about the defense earlier. And how we've been so good. He is a ginormous part of that. We've got Esteve as well, and he was like, there was rumours that he was injured. He went down early doors against Norwich, had to go off, but then I had to use my connections. I dropped him a message asking if he was okay, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I should be back for Saturday." I was like, "Oh, spot on, brilliant,
Exclusive."
Yeah, I had to abuse my connections sometimes. And then Egan Riley in there, probably Roberts at right back. And then, like, the midfield's a weird one. Like I said before, like, I'm not too sure what he'll do because, like, my issue with kind of looking at Watford, like, the midfield is decent. And if Chuck Vitadze is in midfield again, I think he will go with Hannibal to kind of try and disrupt that, who will be partnered by Josh Cullen probably. And then I would love to see Sarmiento be in the 10, but I can't see it. I think it'll end up being Josh Brownhill, unfortunately.
Isn't he your captain?
Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of Burnley fans now, I think he does score a couple of goals, he chips in, and that's important. But I think actually playing the game, he does make us a bit worse. But probably Brownhill playing there. And then the front 3, it'll be Jaden Anthony will be playing on the right. There's reports like Foster could be back, which would be like ginormous if he comes back. He put a post out, but I probably think I'd lean towards probably Zian Fleming being up front, with Koleosho off the left, probably. Although that's probably because as well, with Koleosho being off the left, Sarmiento did go off injured against Norwich. And he has, to be fair, part has leaned towards Sarmiento a little bit this season to play off the left when he's playing Brownhill. But I think, he'll probably be Fleming leading the line with Anthony and Koleosho playing off him.
Interesting that, Charlie, because if we went man,
where is he?
I don't know. You touched him before.
There, Fleming next to Bar, just on the right. See on the right, no, a little bit lower.
This is great.
There we go.
There he is.
There he is. For people who are listening,
there's Wally. Sorry, what were we saying?
We were guiding Charlie through the tactics board. What's interesting there is you look at the formation that Scott Parker's probably going to go with, as Jacob says, and it's pretty much a 4-3-3, which is very similar to the formation we played last weekend, or a 4-2-3-1, depending on how high the wingers are, etc. I think if we went man to man there, I think we'd struggle a little bit in terms of the quality they have. Whereas if we go to a back 3, it might just give us a little bit more protection.
Yeah, before I even heard what you had to say about West Brom, I was always thinking we were going to go to that back 5. Tinkerman Tom Cleverley, and I think that's a really good strength that we're seeing from him, that he's able to adapt the game and get results and get a tune out of our players. So Dan Batman in goal. How was Dan Batman on Saturday? I know I saw a good screen grab of him making a save.
Yeah, Jacob, for context, Dan Batman made 2 saves which were going well wide.
Yeah, I think every time I've watched him ever play football, I do question how, like, this might just be me being like a not an avid Watford watcher, but I'm really surprised that he's still your first choice goalkeeper.
I
Whenever
think
I've watched him, he's been really poor.
he's a fascinating one, Backman, where he signed a long-term contract with us, and he had a bit of a rocky start to the season. But I have to say, and I know he's one of those players where some people's minds are already made up about him, but he's made some really big saves for us, particularly in games where we haven't played well. In the West Brom game, he made saves that you'd expect him to make. There were some people saying he should have done better for the goal. Look, one of those where, again, it evens itself over the course of the season. You think of Hull away, he saved us a couple of times, even the games before he saved us a couple of times. So it's one of those. Batman in goal, a back three of Porteous, Pollock, Morris. I'm a fan of Ebosele to come back in. Charlie?
Yeah, we'll touch on it when we talk about how we can get some joy. But I think this is one to get Ebosele back in. By all accounts I've heard, Ngak has been great, but if we are playing a back three, we are going to need some width. And I think potentially that's why we might get some joy against Burnley. And it's kind of similar with Larousse, but I would not be surprised if we saw Ebosele playing left back again and Andrews coming in or Ngakia there. But for a bit of balance, I think this is how I'd go as our defensive unit. Would you agree, or any changes?
Yeah, I'd bring Ebosele back in. Larousse's our only option really as a left wing back, and I know some people have mentioned that we should be looking at a left back / left wing back in January to give us a bit of a different option. You could even put Ebosele to the left hand side and bring in Andrews, which is an option as well. I wouldn't be surprised at that, actually, just to give us a bit more going forward out wides. But yeah, and then I mean, really is a toss up, I think, between those two. It'll either be Ebosele and Andrews or Ebosele and Larousse, I think. And then you go to the midfield, and you have Loser, who's been a bit of a revelation. I think he's the redemption arc of this Watford team, where he was pretty much down and out. He comes into the 6. Georgie, you'd keep in the 3. Charlie, would you, rather than further forwards?
Yeah. So again, looking at Burnley, looking at the quality that they've got in terms, especially with kind of Anthony Culshaw. I don't know too much about Perez, but I know kind of Jacob was saying how attacking he is, and Roberts. I think this is going to be a game where Cleverley is going to revert back to what we've seen maybe with like the 5-3-2 and having Bayo as one and one more. And I think that's going to be Quadro Bar. Let me see if I can whack Bayo in there. But this is something that we've seen in a couple of games. I think against Man City in the Cup, we saw it where we were trying to be really pragmatic. And I think looking at Burnley, especially looking at their XG this season, where they're right down there, if we're really defensively sound, cut out any spaces, any passing lines, and try and say, come and break us down, and then get joy going forward and try and break on them, that's how I think Tom might approach the game. And that's why I think we could get joy, because we've seen the frustrations with Burnley this season trying to break down other teams. But I might be speaking out of turn. Jacob, what do you think to that in terms of an approach? And have you seen any other teams come to Turf Moor this season and something like that?
Yeah, we had. I know Plymouth kind of partially tried to do it, and we eventually got through them. I know Portsmouth did it as well, but we got through them kind of fortunately. But for the most part, yeah, I know Oxford did it when we went to their place. It's been a few times this season. I just get the fixtures up just so I can remember. Derby did it when they came, and they were really successful. Like, you're definitely right. Like, teams sit back and Burnley struggle. QPR did it. The only thing I would say with teams that try and sit back and counter, and a lot of the reason that them games finish 0-0 is you can't play in behind against Burnley. Like, you can't. Maximus Esteve, anything that goes in behind, honestly, watching him, he sweeps up everything, which is why I think a lot of teams that do try and sit back and try and hit one the break can struggle a lot of the times, because if you're playing them hopeful balls in behind, or playing long balls up front to try and get beyond, I'd bank on Maximus Esteve winning them 99% of the time.
That's interesting with Bayo's movement as well, Charlie, because that was another thing that it was almost perfect for you to be there on Sunday because we did this whole big sort of tactical breakdown of his movement against Hull, and then on Sunday he was really good, Bio, really good, and that pretty much sums up him in a Watford chat. Just on Larousse, he went down with an injury where I think he broke his finger, so I'm just sure he'll still be able to play, but just want to look out for on that, whether he'll play from the start. But I think that's where we'll see it. One question I wanted to ask you, Charlie, on the Watford team, Rocco Vata. Do you reckon he'd be a little bit frustrated after the performance he put in on Sunday that he doesn't start on Saturday? Should he be rewarded with a start?
Potentially. And look, I really like Rocco Vata. Like he's basically the Chapfadazzi replacement in the summer. I just think with this one and seeing how Burnley play, and especially what Jacob said about we can't really get joy going over and their centre half's going to be really good, but they haven't come up against this brute of a man. And I think having Kwadwo Bar being really direct, similar to kind of what we did against City. I mean, you can see here how we kind of approached the game with that back five, and then the three. Oh, shit, I'm a bit rusty with that, but you can see the back five, how it would work, and then the two up front. And this is one of the moves where Bar had that goal wrongfully disallowed. Look what he can do from a position, how deep he is, how strong he is, up against, who's this?
John Stones.
Yeah, get rid of him. He's light work. And he picks up the ball, a loose ball on the halfway line, and he's that good, powerful, direct. He can get here, scoring goals. Robbed that it didn't count. But I think I'd just go with Bar on this one. I think we still need that vocal point in Bio when we are trying to keep the ball up and when we are trying to keep direct and keep those centre halves occupied. But for me, I think Bar might be better outlet than Rocco Vata for this one. And obviously, we've seen it with Tom how many times keep it tight and then bring on our flair from the bench. So that's how I'd play it. Culshaw, do you agree, or do you think Vata's got to start?
No, I think if you're playing this system, it's really made for Bar next to Bio, and then giving Chapfadazzi the license to basically roam where he wants to, and on the sort of premise that when we do lose the ball, you tuck into a three, and when we have it, you could go and express yourself and go anywhere you want across the pitch. That kind of if you look at the bench as well, if we do want to change it, I guess one man he didn't change it. Jefferson didn't get a lot of good words said about him after his sort of 10-minute cameo, but you look at Kiembe, who could come on, Andrews, who could easily start as someone who could come on and really give us some energy down the right-hand side. Vata, as I said, is someone who could change the game for us. So, yeah, look, we do have options there, and obviously Ogbonna back into the mix if we need to change the back three at any point. So it does really give us options going into the weekends. Couple of questions I wanted to ask you, Jacob, just on Burnley, before we touch on Watford's away versus home form to sort of wrap up the preview. How have Burnley been so good defensively? And also, in the same question, what are the weaknesses to look out for? Where could Watford exploit this Burnley team?
I think, defensively, it's been like we really are conservative in possession. We have a lot of the ball, but there's not a lot of that kind of risk factor put into it. I said, like with the midfield, like we've got players like Jeremy Sarmiento, who for me has been exceptional whenever he's played in the number 10, and it's likely he's probably out for the game due to injury against Watford. But I think like it's very conservative in the fact that not just the way we play, but the team selections, like playing things like Josh Cullen, Josh Brownhill, and Hannibal at the set sometimes, which really you've got three players there. You've got one number 6 in Cullen, and then you've got two who are more defensive minded 8s, and Hannibal and Brownhill are basically the same player, but Hannibal's just a little bit better going forward. So I think that's a big part of it. Also, like with Perez, I believe he had a spell where he was injured, and Humphreys came in, and like I said before, he's basically just a third centre back when we're in possession. So that's a big part of it. Also, the quality is really, really strong in that back line. I mean, I said it before, but Maxime Esteve, he's not a championship footballer. He had offers coming in the summer to go to the Premier League, and he said no. He wanted to stay and take one back up, and then that's kind of like what you want from a player. And he's
Where did you get him from?
Montpellier, with a loan with an option to buy. I think it was about 15 million in the summer we got him for. But he is like, I mean, you'll hear it, Charlie, on Saturday. Whenever he touches the ball, you hear a massive shout of Steve. Because Burnley can't pronounce instead. But yeah, honestly, and I was speaking to him the other day, and he said he really hopes to stay here long enough that he can actually have a chant that includes his full name, not just Steve. But yeah, he's top quality. And then you've also got, if you get past that back line, you've got James Trafford to get past, which Norwich massively struggled with at the weekend. I mean, Bo just signs, how good he's been. He had a few opportunities, and Trafford kept them out. When we went Ellen Road as well, the quality that Leeds have, and Trafford again turns up when it matters. So yeah, I think the defense is really strong, and I think the midfield does have a lot of legs in it, which again, a lot of them games that teams have sat back have ended 0-0 because you can keep well, but it's very, very hard to go down the other end and score because of that energy and the I think with players like Jacob Horsfall, there'll be a lot of times where Park will try and create that kind of box around him, isolate him. And I think we've been quite good at isolating players, to be fair, this season. And I think, if you can isolate someone like him, it bears well for the rest of the game. But in terms of actually getting outward and stuff, I think there is definitely areas where you can have a bit of joy. I know I said about before with the midfield getting back, but at the same time, when we're settled and we're in that kind of rest defence, there's gaps that appear between the lines a lot, because I think there's a few square pegs and circular holes in the way that Parker picks it. Like I said, if Humphrey's playing, you can kind of get at him when he turns up. He's a great defensive fullback. But at the same time, if he's asked to go forward, you can attack that space that he leaves. And also, I know you mentioned that goal about the goal against Manchester City. And I know I said if you're going in behind, you can't get some success. But I think if you're running at the defence, because when we have the ball, we do sometimes push the fullbacks forward, especially if it's Pires and Roberts. You'll be isolated. That whoever's with there will be isolated against two centre backs backtracking. So I think that could be a position where you get a bit of joy as well. But again, to go back to Jacob Horsfall, I think if he can get the ball in between the kind of the Cullen Brownell or Cullen Hannibal that are sitting, and get just in between that on the edge of the 18-yard box, that's where a lot of joy will come. But yeah, just don't try and go in behind. I feel like I say it every week. Some team comes and they try to pump long balls up, and it's like, look at it, like CJ Egan-Riley as well has been really good, which was kind of a surprising one. I know it's something like he's tackled 95% of the dribblers that he's challenged. I think he challenges about 1.3 dribbles per 90 and wins 95% of them, which is pretty decent considering how much of the ball we have as well. But yeah, I think, like I said, you just don't go long, and you'll probably find some way to get through. Just don't go in behind. I'm saying that now. You'll probably score free from through balls straight through the defence. But yeah.
From what Jacob said, it kind of lends itself to chat for that scene to bar, as you say, Charlie. So how do Watford beat Burnley? I know you've mentioned is it a Portsmouth goal that they've conceded as one that...
Yeah, I mean, Jacob would probably tell better, and it was hard. When I was had a look at Burnley's results and who had the most joy, and I looked at kind of who had the highest XG at Turf Moor, and Pompey did, and I think that was probably from like a set-piece chance. That was quite easy. But their goal I found quite interesting, where they were attacking down the left wing, and they had kind of an underlapping run. And I think it was Josh Murphy played it into someone who squared it across. It was a simple tap-in. And I think it was Culshaw who was on that right wing at the time. And I just thought, when Jacob was talking about Culshaw and how he's performed in the Championship, it reeked of Ismail Assar. Like, that player who played in the Premier League looks great and has to drop down. But I think the side that Culshaw will be on, if it will be the left side, like Jacob said, when we've got like an Ebisele or an Andrews, I think we could have some real joy there, trying to get kind of underlapping runs, especially if Pires is going forward. And I think that's where we're going to get most joy, and hopefully kind of Bio's there so it comes off his bottom or whatever point it is. But it's going to be a really tough task. Yeah, for me, it's like, I don't know, it sounds like it could be a low-scoring affair.
Go on, give us a prediction, Charlie.
Yeah, like I said, low-scoring affair. Burnley really good defensively. Watford not great away from home. I'm going to go for a 3-3.
Oh, wow, you've teed that up. I would certainly take a point. If you said to me now, take a point at Turf Moor, bite your hand off. I'm going to go 1-1. I think we'll score first, but Burnley will peg us back. Jacob?
I'm going to say 2-0 Burnley. I think if you score first, you'll get something. But I think if we score first, it'll be game over.
It's got to be 1-0 Burnley. That's the only score, isn't it?
But yeah, pretty much. I don't actually think, if I look at the results now, to be fair, I said before, when Browner was in the side, we did win 2 games 2-0. Then we went back to winning 1-0. But yeah.
Do you know what's really interesting? I've just looked at when Burnley score most of their goals as well. You finish games really strongly. I mean, 9 goals scored in the 75th to 90th minute, which is, compare it to the rest of the sort of those 15-minute blocks, it's miles beyond any other sort of 50 minutes. Is that a sort of typical game where you guys always finish strongly, or is that just a coincidence?
I think with the way Parker said, I know I said before that he plays very safe, and I think you get to a point where if we're still 0-0, it's turn it on. We've got to turn it on now, and he wants to stay safe as long as he can and just prevent the opposition scoring. And if we can't find that bit of magic to get through, I think that's when he kind of turns it on. And to be fair, I want to just say with what Charlie said before about Culshaw, I think I didn't really think about it before until you said that, but I think with Sarmiento's potential injury, that could mean that Humphreys plays off the left. Because I know when Perez plays, Sarmiento can often play on the left to kind of give that kind of, that running back. And if you said if Watford are going to try and, get in behind and go for that overload onto someone like Perez, maybe Culshaw's not the best, because sometimes he can look really lazy, and other times, you'll sprint straight through the pitch. So I know on his birthday when we beat Leeds, on mine and his birthday, we share a birthday. When we beat Leeds, he was all over the place. He was obviously buzzing to go on a night out in Leeds, but yeah, I think if Sarmiento is absent, then it could potentially be Humphreys, just to add that on.
Jacob's gone 2-0 Burnley. I've gone 1-1. Charlie's gone 3-3. God, it's only 1 on a Thursday, by the way, Charlie. I don't know. Christmas has come early.
Finish for Christmas.
Let us know your score predictions in the comment section below. Anything else we wanted to add? Anything we missed, lads, that you wanted to mention about the game?
I think up the Clarets.
Charlie, up the audits.
No, I'm just getting flashbacks of the last time we went to Turf Moor when Jacob was saying the scoring late. Valerian Ishmael S-Howes his way to a 1-0 win, and then Obafemi, did it come off his, I don't know,
I remember that. I swear that was just before we'd missed from 6 yards out, and then Obafemi fell onto the ball or something. Yeah,
that was vintage.
There we have it. We'll see if we get a result on Saturday at Turf Moor. As we said, Burnley have not lost at home this season. A tough task ahead for the Hornets. Jacob, thank you so much for taking a bit of time out on your Thursday, having a chat with us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. And where can people find you if they haven't seen your content already?
Thanks for having me on. And just Jacob Horsfall, no E, on everything, on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. Just talking about football. Not necessarily Burnley all the time, but just football.
Top man, really high level content.
Jacob.
We're doing one, probably not for Watford fans to be fair, but one player that every Premier League club should sign. I don't think Watford feature in that one, but yeah, that's
actually better not feature in that one.
No, I think it was just Callum Fowler just saying that he wanted to raid Sheffield. So yeah.
What should João Pedro get mentioned?
No.
Oh. Anyone? Ismail Assar, Will Hughes, is anyone?
I think Will Hughes got a mention. Will Hughes got a mention.
Do you know what? It was bizarre last night. I ended up at the Emirates. Really quick story. Ended up at the Emirates, and Palace obviously playing Arsenal in yellow, and I'm watching Will Hughes and Ismail Assar play again. I was having flashbacks, getting a bit emotional. Jacob, what a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on, mate. Really do appreciate it. Just a bit of housekeeping from our ends with videos coming up on the channel. As I mentioned, with the Cardiff game on the 29th of December, we're going to have a post-match pint at the Mad Squirrel, so come along. I won't be there, but it'll be Charlie Zazzera, Sam Yuko, and...
+1 to be confirmed.
+1 to be confirmed. Watch this space. We're going to have a 5 players Watford should sign in the January transfer window. Similar video to what Jacob's done for the Premier League content as well. And we'll have a very special announcement coming soon. So watch this space. Make sure to follow WD18 at WD18fans. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on the video. Comment down below your thoughts, score predictions, what you think of this game, what you've made of any of the takes that we've discussed today. And we will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a great weekend and up the audits. You odds.